The Texas neighborhood that forgot time. Texas is built on expansion. New suburbs stretch into open land every year. Fresh pavement, identical houses, cul-de-sacs with trimmed lawns and mailbox flags standing straight. Everything feels new, controlled, predictable. That is what made the neighborhood so unsettling. It was built outside a growing Texas city, marketed as quiet, safe, modern. Wide streets, security cameras, young families, no history, no cemeteries, no abandoned buildings nearby. Just a clean development pressed into flat land that used to be nothing but scrub and dust. The first sign something was wrong wasn't dramatic. It was a clock. A woman preparing dinner noticed her kitchen clock still read 6:17 p.m. long after sunset. She assumed the battery had died. She checked her phone. 6:17 p.m. She reset it. 5 minutes later, it read 6:17 again. Her husband laughed it off until he checked his own phone. Same time. Frozen. The television worked. The internet worked. But every digital clock inside their home refused to move past that exact minute. Across the street, a neighbor stepped outside to ask if anyone else's power was acting strange. That's when they noticed something worse. The sky wasn't changing. It was still sunset. Orange light hanging low across rooftops. Long shadows stretched across lawns. The air felt paused. Not calm. Paused. The Texas neighborhood had forgotten time. At first, residents believed it was a glitch, a localized outage, something tied to cell towers. But when they attempted to drive out, the main road curved back toward the entrance sign no matter which direction they took. They drove slowly at first, then faster. Every turn led back to the same 4 streets, same houses, same parked cars. No matter how far they drove, they remained inside the development. Phones displayed full signal, but no calls connected. Text messages sent, but never delivered. Social media feeds refused to refresh. It was still 6:17 p.m. The sun hovered unmoving. Children playing outside didn't understand what was wrong. Adults did. Because time in Texas does not stop. The brutal part wasn't the loop. It was what changed after hours of being trapped inside the same minute. Hunger didn't grow. Thirst didn't intensify. Stomachs remained steady. No one felt physically tired. But mentally, something began to crack. Without the passage of time, thoughts lost anchors. Conversations repeated. People forgot what they had already said minutes earlier. Arguments restarted without memory of ending. The neighborhood began to deteriorate emotionally. One man decided to test the boundary on foot. He walked straight down the main street toward the open field beyond the last house. He passed the final mailbox and stepped into the dirt. The sky flickered. For a split second, darkness swallowed everything. Then, 6:17 p.m. returned. He was standing back at his own driveway. No memory of walking back, just dust on his shoes. Search trends would later call it a time loop in Texas. An unexplained phenomenon in a small Texas neighborhood. But those trapped inside it didn't have search engines anymore. They only had repetition. After what felt like days, subtle changes appeared. One house had its porch light on when it hadn't before. A car that had been parked facing east was now facing west. Residents couldn't agree on whether those details had always been that way. That's when they realized something terrifying. Time might have stopped. But the neighborhood hadn't. At exactly 6:17 p.m., something moved between the houses. It wasn't obvious at first, just a flicker in peripheral vision, a shadow that lingered too long between fences, curtains shifting without wind. People began reporting seeing figures standing at the ends of streets. Not neighbors, not strangers they recognized, just silhouettes shaped like people, perfectly still, watching. Every time someone tried to approach, the silhouette vanished. One family locked themselves inside, pulling blinds down. They assumed staying indoors would keep them safe. That night never came. The sun never dipped lower. But the interior of their house grew darker anyway, not from outside, from within. Walls seemed closer, hallways longer, the air heavier. They began hearing knocking at their front door, soft at first, then rhythmic. 3 knocks. Pause. 3 knocks. When the father finally looked through the peephole, he saw himself standing on the porch, smiling. The copy outside didn't blink. It knocked again, 3 times. He stepped back. When he looked again, the porch was empty. Across the neighborhood, more residents reported seeing versions of themselves walking past windows, standing across the street, turning corners. The figures didn't speak. They observed. The longer 6:17 p.m. lasted, the more those copies appeared. One teenager tried to confront his double. He ran toward it screaming. The double didn't move. When he reached it, both vanished. The boy returned to his front yard seconds later. Except something was wrong. His parents noticed immediately. He answered questions before they finished asking them. He blinked out of sync, and when they looked into his eyes, there was no confusion, only patience. Over what felt like weeks inside a frozen minute, some residents began acting differently. Subtle at first, forgetting names, standing too still in the street, smiling at nothing. The duplicates were replacing them. The neighborhood had not forgotten time. It had captured it. The theory that formed among the remaining aware residents was desperate but logical. The land had been empty before development. Scrub field. Unmapped soil. No historical record because nothing had ever been built there. Until now. What if something beneath that ground existed outside time entirely? What if building over it forced it to adapt? Instead of rejecting the neighborhood, it absorbed it, trapped it in a single moment, studied it, replicated it. Each repetition allowed it to perfect the copies. Those who were replaced stopped resisting the loop. They stood calmly on lawns, watching others panic. At 6:17 p.m., fear was strongest, and fear seemed to accelerate the process. The last remaining group of residents gathered in the center of the cul-de-sac. They decided to stop running, stop fighting, stop reacting. They stood still. No shouting, no panic, no attempts to escape. The silhouettes appeared at the ends of each street. The duplicates stepped closer, but without visible fear to feed on, they hesitated. The sky flickered violently. For the first time, the sun dipped a fraction lower, 6:18 p.m. The number on one surviving phone changed. The entire neighborhood trembled. The duplicates rushed forward, residents scattered instinctively, and the clocks snapped back. 6:17 p.m. The attempt had failed. Now only a handful of originals remained. They learned something important in that moment. The neighborhood was not powered by time. It was powered by reaction. As long as fear spiked at 6:17 p.m., the loop reset. As long as panic surged, the copies strengthened. Somewhere beyond that trapped suburb, the rest of Texas moved normally. Traffic flowed. Night fell. News anchors spoke about weather and sports. No one reported missing families, because technically, they were still there, frozen in a perfect sunset. If you drive along a certain highway outside a growing Texas city, you might notice a development that looks oddly quiet. Identical houses. Clean sidewalks. A welcome sign at the entrance. If you glance at your dashboard clock while passing, you might see 6:17 p.m., even if it isn't. Most drivers don't stop. Those who do sometimes report something strange. The sun lingers a little too long. The air feels paused. And for a split second, in a second-story window, they see someone standing perfectly still. Watching. Because somewhere in Texas, there is a neighborhood that forgot time, and it is still waiting for 6:18.